Hello, honeybees. My name is Raven. This is October, my familiar, and welcome. No, wait. And welcome back to our channel.
Subscribe to become part of the hive. Be sure to like and ring the notification bell. Thanks, honeybees. Enjoy the video.
Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. I was gonna do like the Orlock voice for like the whole intro, and I cried it over and over again, and I just couldn't do it. But my whole plan for this video, I was gonna do a dedicated video just to Nosferatu because shocker, I really liked it. But it is in my top 5 of movies that came out in 2024, so I figured why not just talk about all the best and worst movies of 2024. So here we are. So this is gonna be a lot to talk about, so I'm kind of just gonna jump right into it. Usually what I do is I'll talk about, like, I'll give like a good mention to like my top 20 with special attention to top 10. So I'm going to do that again today. And then I'll usually do like my bottom 5. I think I kind of want to mention like a little bit more than that for the bottom films, just because there were so many movies that came out this year that were just like straight up duds. And I'm going to kind of try to breeze through most of the movies with special attention to like the tops in each category. But yeah, I have a lot that I want to talk about. I only saw 73 new releases this year. I always try to aim for around 100, and I just was kind of far off this year, but there was a lot out there, a lot to keep up with. It took me a minute to record this video because there was some that I wanted to catch up on, but I think I'm in a good place with it right now. It's really, really difficult for me every year to organize every single film I've ever seen in a cohesive ranked list. If you want to see my full ranking of all 73 new releases I saw this year, you can check that out on my Letterboxd. Link will be in the description. I want to start with the worst movies just because I think it's good to end on a positive note by talking about the best movies. So I'm going to give dishonorary mention to the movies in my bottom 20, with I guess giving more special attention to bottom 5. So we're going to do bottom 20 going from least bad to worst movie that I saw in 2024. At number 20, I have the film Y2K. Y2K came out fairly recently. It came out, I think, November or December. Since it's technically a New Year's movie, it's a holiday movie. It came out around that time. So it is one of my more recent watches of 2024. So it's much fresher in my brain than some of the films that are above it on the list. So take everything I say with a grain of salt, but I do believe it deserves to be in the bottom 20. The first like 10 minutes of it was good and fun and quirky. And then spoilers, I guess, they very quickly kill off who I thought was the most entertaining character, not just because his character himself was funny, which I thought he was, but he was the vessel for the main character to play off of. Our main character is very like awkward, and his best friend is like the funny character he plays off of. So once they kill that best friend, the main character kind of has no personality to him anymore. And yeah, me not liking the movie had nothing to do with how like weird and convoluted it was. That's definitely a part of it, but really it was just I did not like the characters and it was not enjoyable to watch. See, I'm already talking way too much about these. I'm not going to talk this much about about all my bottom 20, but next one, 19, is Spaceman, which is a direct-to-Netflix movie starring Adam Sandler. This one had an interesting idea. I wanted to like it really bad, but it was just so low key. I don't know how to explain it. There really wasn't anything to capture my attention. It was very slow. It was I would call it boring, but it was an interesting concept that I felt like was wasted. At number 18, I have Nightbitch. I saw this very, very recently. This is one of the movies I wanted to catch up on. I did a trailer reaction to this as part of a video where I reacted to a lot of trailers for movies that came out in 2024. And something I could tell from the trailer was that I wasn't going to really like the portrayal of what this movie represents. It's a woman thinking she's turning into a dog. And what I wanted it to be and it's supposed to represent like feminine rage, essentially. I don't think they went far enough with that concept. They made it too low-key. They should have been way more ridiculous and over the top with it. It should have been more ragey. I wanted to feel stronger, and I just really didn't like I just really did not think they went far enough with that concept because it was an interesting concept. Next on the list is Mr. Crocket. This is a direct-to-Hulu horror movie that was just stupid. It was dumb. It was this like VHS tape that is possessed and tries to protect children and kills the parents and sucks the children into the VHS tape, which again, this one was also kind of an interesting concept, but it opens with just the dumbest shit I could think of. a parent is trying to get their kid to eat healthy, and the kid doesn't want to eat healthy because kids don't like vegetables. And so Mr. Crocket comes out of the TV and is like, do you like being force fed? And puts like bugs and shit into the dad's mouth. And then like, you need more iron, and like puts a hot iron on him. And it's like, you can't really compare that punishment with trying to get your kid to eat vegetables. Sometimes parents need to be strict, and they shouldn't be punished for that. So I thought it was just so stupid. I didn't like it at all. And it wasn't scary either. Next is Brothers. I did talk about this in another catch-up video that I did recently. So if you want more of my opinion on that, check that out. It was just a lot. I mean, I feel like most of these have the same theme in that it was an interesting concept, poor execution. And that's definitely Brothers. Next is Drugstore June. Drugstore June, I think, was also direct to Hulu. And the direct to streaming movies that are new that came out in 2024, total duds. At least most of them that I saw this year, just terrible. There's a lot more on the list that are in the mid range that are also just direct to streaming, and I don't know what it is about direct to streaming. I feel like they used to be really good and they've just gradually gone down in quality with the rise of streaming services. But Drugstore June just has the most unlikable, cringe ass main character that I have seen in a movie since that terrible like robot Santa Claus movie that came out a couple years ago. I did do a video on that, but that movie was awful to watch too, just because the main character is so abrasive and obnoxious, and that's how I felt about Drugstore June. The best part of Drugstore June was the scene with a bad baby in it. She like runs a smoke shop and she's the funniest part of the movie, and she's in one scene. Next on my list is Civil War. I don't know if I talked too much about this earlier. I saw it right when it came out, like way at the beginning of 2024, and I made a TikTok about it, I think, and I talked about how it was just a little too ambiguous about like what the war was about and what was going on. And it's fine to be ambiguous, but I kind of just never really understood what was happening, and I don't think they really went all the way with their concept visually. It was good. But I feel like there wasn't much to the story beyond the visuals, and I was bored. Next, Kinds of Kindness. I do have a whole dedicated video to this, so definitely check that out if you want my full thoughts on why I hated Kinds of Kindness. I'm a big Yorgos hater. I don't like anything that he's ever put out. There's some movies that I think of his that I think are okay, but I either think they're okay or I think they're absolutely terrible. I hated Poor Things. I talked about that in 2023, and Kinds of Kindness just has the same obnoxious shit that Yorgos Lanthimos does. His characters, I hate how he portrays people. I just hate every person that he has created on screen. They're just so insufferable. So Kinds of Kindness was just an insufferable film for me, and way too long. Next is Ricky Stanicky. Surprise, surprise, another straight to streaming movie, this time from Amazon Prime. I saw this also at the very beginning of 2024. I was really excited for it. It was like my first direct-to-streaming movie that I watched in 2024. And Zac Efron, John Cena looked really funny. It wasn't. Concept was weird and not believable. And just really like weird things happen. The main character lies to his whole family his entire life. And when it is revealed that he has done so, there's no repercussions for it, basically whatsoever. But there's a lot of other problems beside that. Also just wasn't very funny. Next, this is number 11 going downwards. Harold and the Purple Crayon. I have a whole dedicated video to this as well, so definitely check that out. I'm not going to be able to link all of the videos because YouTube only lets you put so many. So, but you can definitely check out Harold and the Purple Crayon. My Harold and the Purple Crayon review if you want more, but just weird that it's grown adult Zachary Levi as this kid. And Zachary Levi, I talked about this in my review, is a good looking man, and they made him not good looking. They made him such a weirdo. Yeah, everything about that movie was so strange and not entertaining at all, and it made me upset. Next, we're in the bottom 10 now. Exciting stuff. Sasquatch Sunset. Sasquatch Sunset is about a family of Sasquatches, and like Jesse Eisenberg is one of them. There's like some other big names in it. You can't tell it's them because they're Sasquatches the whole time. There's no dialogue. It's just kind of a Sasquatch family living its life. And it's so incredibly boring. They just like poop and have sex and birth babies and die. Like a lot of the Sasquatches like die along the way, and you see them like eat. It's disgusting. There's a lot of puke. There's a lot of shit. There's a lot of piss. It's gross and boring, and there's great nature shots, and that's about the only positive I have to say about that movie. Next, Night Swim. Night Swim, I'm pretty sure, was the first new release I watched in 2024, and it has consistently stayed at the bottom because it was also just boring. I'm going to say that for all of the rest of them is that they were at one point really, really boring or just really, really weird. I think weird is better than boring most of the time, and this one was just boring and not entertaining and not scary and a really dumb, weird concept like a haunted pool. Okay, all right. That's all I have to say. Next, Self-Reliance. Yet another direct-to-streaming film. I forget which platform this was on. I think it was Hulu. It's not important. Don't watch it. Interesting concept, poor execution. Again, there was like certain relationships between characters and like plot points that I thought would go a certain way that would make sense and be fun and entertaining and a cool thing to like a cool concept to explore. But the movie every single time subverted what I thought should happen and made just like a really weird, bad, boring choice with their concepts and characters that just like really didn't make sense. So at the end of the movie I was like, well, what are you trying to say then? Like, what's the point then? It would have made a lot of sense if they went a million different ways with this quite interesting concept, and they just flubbed it. They just really dropped the ball on that one. Poor execution all around with Self-Reliance, more so than with a lot of these movies. Next, Dear Santa. I talked about Dear Santa at length during my Christmas video that I put out this year, where I talked about direct-to-streaming Christmas movies that are bad, and two of the ones I talked about in that video are in this bottom 10. But Dear Santa is one of them, and Dear Santa was just so incredibly strange in the worst way possible. Another interesting concept, a concept meant for a skit or a short film, not a full-length film. You could tell they just kind of had to like think of more ideas to make a fully fleshed out plot, and it just like did not work. I hated the main kid. I know it's mean to say that like a kid is a bad actor, but I don't even think it was really his fault. I think just the character was like weird and annoying and obnoxious, and all the weird stuff with Post Malone, like saying that like this random little kid is his reason for life because Satan told him to make the kid look cool. Like that was just really weird. Like why did they think that that was be cool? This was definitely a movie meant for children, because kids would think that was cool. Me as an adult, everything was just very weird and creepy. Okay, next is Woman of the Hour, which I also saw recently. It's one of the movies that I wanted to catch up on before putting out this list, and unfortunately it was really bad and only padded the bottom of my list. I was looking for movies to pad the top of my list, but whatever. Woman of the Hour, similar to Self-Reliance, with which ironically they both star Anna Kendrick. This one she's like the star, and I think she like directed this one too. And Self-Reliance, she's a pretty big side character. This one was just extremely poor execution, boring execution. It's a story that like I've heard before about this serial killer guy who goes on the dating game and he ends up winning, but then he's so weird that the lady doesn't even go out with him, and then it was revealed later that he was a serial killer. So it's about that guy, and Anna Kendrick is the girl who is on the dating show. There's some interesting bits here and there, but the way like his murders are portrayed, it's like not linear. You like see them all in like the past and the future and the present, all kind of throughout the movie, which was fine, which was an interesting concept as well, but it just was, they just didn't go there. And I'm going to say that a lot too. It's like if you're going to have that concept, like you have to like commit to it. You have to like show these things. This is about a serial killer. This is serious stuff here. And this movie seemed afraid to really explore that concept. So poor execution, Woman of the Hour. Bottom 5 now, and I can tell you what, all of these movies are on the bottom 5 because they're incredibly boring, save maybe for the worst movie I have of the year, which was just like abhorrently bad for reasons other than it's boring. But let me just get to that really quickly. So at number 5, leading up to 1, Godzilla vs. Kong. Boring, way too much government stuff. And normally I love like monster type movies, like big, like King Kong movies, Godzilla, any other like big monster, big animal type movies. Like I love that stuff. I love it. I don't know why. I've just always loved like big animal or big monster does something and we have to stop it. but they just made it all science-y and government-y and all this like science government talk. I really don't give a fuck about the science behind Godzilla or King Kong or anything like that. I just want to see them do stuff. And they did stuff, sure, but intermixed with just the most boring scenes I've ever seen in my life. So that one is definitely cemented in the bottom 5 for me. Next is the movie 1992. 1992 I saw because a friend of mine in real life, he was in a scene of this movie. He's like one of the young like thugs that points a gun in our main character's face in a convenience store, which is a scene kind of towards the beginning of this movie. And that's the only scene that my friend is in. So obviously I watched the whole movie with said friend and some of our other friends in the theater. And unfortunately, really honestly, the problem is that it was poorly timed. It's a lot about like race and racism and police brutality. And this movie I know was shot several years ago because my friend like looks much smaller and younger in it than he is now. And when I brought it up, he's like, yeah, I filmed that years ago when I first got to LA, which was like, I don't know, 3, 4, maybe 5 years ago at this point. So it was filmed a while ago. I assume it was filmed more during when like the Black Lives Matter era was like just blossoming. And there was like all these different riots and stuff, which has happened all throughout history, but definitely it has boomed at certain points. And now at this time, not that it's not relevant, but it was very obviously reflecting that era. So I think it came out like a little late for it to really make the impact I'm sure it wanted to make. And not just that, I mean, the core concept itself and the execution of the film, just there was nothing special about it, really. It wasn't interesting to look at. The story itself wasn't great. Like I understood like what it was supposed to be about, obviously police brutality and stuff like that, which is an important message, but the execution of the film was just not interesting or entertaining, and it was boring. It just is what it is. Bottom 3, number 3 worst film that came out in 2024 is Madam Web. I do have a dedicated video to Madam Web as well, so you can find that on my channel. This one was the bottom film of the year for even longer than Night Swim was. Madam Web was my bottom movie of the year for probably like a good 3, 4, maybe 5 months until I saw the actual worst film of the year, which was like halfway through the year. So Madam Web, just terrible. Just terrible. You know, I don't even really want to get into that one and how terrible it is. Watch the video if you're curious about my thoughts about it, but I feel like anyone who's seen Madam Web knows that it's bad, and I don't need to really delve into it very much. Number 2, the second worst movie that I saw in 2024 is Nutcrackers. Another direct to streaming. I think this one was direct to Paramount Plus, or that was Dear Santa. Nutcrackers was probably direct to Hulu, I think it was. Starring Ben Stiller. I talked about this in my direct to streaming Christmas video from this year, so check that out for my full thoughts on that. It was just not Christmassy at all. Like there's a few little concepts here and there. Not Christmassy, not heartwarming, unlikable characters all around. Super unoriginal story, extremely unoriginal, and very poor, boring execution. Just terrible. Okay, now here we are. The worst film that I saw, well, the worst new release that I saw in 2024 is Unfrosted, the Pop-Tarts movie that was direct to Netflix, starring Jerry Seinfeld.
In the early 1960s, the American morning was defined by milk and cereal. And the two undisputed giants of the cereal world were Kellogg's and Post.
Major news from the breakfast world. The Post Cereal Company has reportedly invented a shelf-stable fruit pastry breakfast product.
No.
Yeah.
Boy.
Unfrosted, I don't think anyone, if you've seen that movie, if you have seen that movie, why did you watch it? But also, if you have seen it, you know that it's the worst thing ever. It's just so terrible and like painfully unfunny. But you could tell watching it that everybody making it thought that this was the most hilarious shit ever. Like, this is so funny and ironic. The kids are gonna love this. No, it was awful. None of the jokes were funny. It was all stupid. You could feel Jerry Seinfeld's ego coming through the screen. Because I think he wrote this or he had some big involvement in it other than starring in it. And he like cast all his like famous friends, and they're all doing the best shtick acting that they can, and it's all terrible. And Jerry is like, I could feel through the screen that he thinks he's the smartest, funniest, most amazing guy who's ever been. And and I was just seething at how much I hated this guy while I was watching this movie. And I don't know how else to express it. The best way for me to tell you how unfunny it is would just be to show you the movie. I don't know. I'm playing all the trailers for these movies as I talk about them, so if maybe I'll find a particular clip if I can find one, but I don't think anything is gonna really express how bad it is unless you watch it. But don't watch it because it's bad. And I couldn't watch it all in one day. I split it up into 2 days, which I never do with movies, but I was just so tired of it and so annoyed. So Unfrosted, the worst new release that I saw in 2024. Now time for the good stuff. Yay! I'm gonna give honorable mention to all the movies in my top 20 and give special attention to the top 5/top 10. I don't want this video to be 3 hours long, so I'm gonna try to control myself. It was hard to do with the worst movies. I could probably do it with the best movies, because when it comes to good movies, the reason I'm such a hater on my channel and I tend to talk mostly about movies I don't like is because I just have so much more to say about why a movie failed than I would if the movie had not failed. It's just kind of like, this movie did everything it was supposed to do and it was very good, and that's why it's good. Okay, I'm actually going to honorable mention my top 30, but I'm not going to talk about the ones in the later bracket. I just want to like mention them because I think they're worth mentioning. 30 going up to the best movie of the year. I'm just going to breeze by the first grouping of 10 here. At number 30, Gladiator 2. 29, Megalopolis. 28, Inside Out 2. 27, Problemista. 26, Furiosa, a Mad Max story. 25, Baby Girl. 24, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, which, yes, is technically a direct-to-streaming film. It did premiere at AFI Film Festival a couple months ago, and direct-to-streaming just here January of 2025, but it's technically a 2024 film because it was in a theater in 2024. 23, Anora. 22, Abigail. 21, Immaculate. Those are the first groupings of 10 in the top 30, so now I'm going to get a little more into it. At number 20, I have Smile 2, which Smile 2, in retrospect, moved up a lot for me. When I first watched it, I was like, this was okay, but I kind of had something against it because it was a sequel, and it was, like, so similar to the original. I mean, the main character and, like, the story around them is very, very different than the first Smile. I did talk a little bit more in depth about this in a different video, I think. In retrospect, like, as a sequel, it's a really, really good sequel. And of course the sequel is going to be very similar to the original. I was just being, I think, pretentious about it when I first watched it. But in reflection, really good visuals, practical effects I always appreciate. And there's a lot of good practical effects in this film. And I did like how much they did change it from the original. Like, the concept is still the same as the original. Kind of like the layout of how, like, the events of the film is very similar. But because of the differences between the main characters, like, it was different enough to be like a really good standalone sequel. Like, you didn't really need to see the first one. It definitely helped if you did, just because of how the film opens, but if you didn't, you're not missing too much. It's still a good film, so I think I needed to give it credit for that. At number 19, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I just like all of those movies. Right before I watched Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, which I think is the 4th in the new series of the Planet of the Apes films, because of course there's like the classic ones and there's the Tim Burton one. I watched all of them right beforehand, so I was kind of just like in that mindset of like, wow, these are such incredible movies, which they are. Just visually, it was fantastic, and this is like the first one in the new series where Caesar is not the main character, so I really like how they're continuing it. And I really liked how this one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, is kind of the most similar to the original film Planet of the Apes and the Tim Burton remake. Like, story-wise, it was very, very similar. So I would consider Kingdom as like the remake, not Rise of the Planet of the Apes and the other ones after it. This is the one that's like, this is the movie that we've been building up to. And that's what I really love about this new Planet of the Apes series, is that we don't just start where apes are in charge. We see the whole progression in that world of where it got there, and then we see what the original movies were all about. And I love that. So just because I really like the series, this fourth film made it in my top 20. At number 18, Killer's Game. This is a lot of actors, different actors, have been getting their very own John Wick lately. Ke Huy Quan is getting one in February with, I think it's called Love Hurts, which is his John Wick. This one was Dave Bautista's John Wick. He's an assassin. He takes a hit out on himself because he thinks he's dying. So all these other assassins have to come to kill him, and then he realizes he's not dying, and then so he has to kill all of them. And which is unoriginal, I guess. Unoriginal because the same thing happened in John Wick 3 or 4. I think 4, the most recent one. I think both. I think 3 and 4, all these assassins are trying to kill John Wick. But Dave Bautista is not John Wick. He's his own version of this character in this movie. And it was really fun, and I really liked the kills and just the different interpretation of this kind of story. I liked it. And I like John Wick, and I like movies about assassins and having to and a bunch of people trying to kill you and you got to kill them. I like that. I think it's fun. Bullet Train is kind of like that. I liked Bullet Train. And all these other John Wick knockoffs, I like them. Except for one called Silent Night that came out, I think, last year. But other than that, I like them. At number 17 is the Bikeriders. This is another one I gave a whole video to. Now, I don't know if the Bikeriders really deserves to be in top 20 because there were some parts where I thought it was a little uninteresting and unentertaining and kind of went on for a little too long in some parts, but I love the cast so much and I liked the time period and I did like the story conceptually. I don't think it was executed perfectly the whole film. It was definitely just kind of a little bit above average. That was pretty good. But because I love Austin Butler and Tom Hardy and some various others in the cast, it just it's higher in my heart. And this movie is based on my opinion. So in my opinion, it deserves a spot in the top 20, even if analytically film wise, it wasn't as good as some of the other movies below it. But in my heart, it deserves to be there. At number 16, Monkey Man, which a lot of people were saying Monkey Man was Dev Patel's version of John Wick. That's not true, even though it is also similar, I guess, in that it's a revenge story. But there's plenty of different kinds of revenge stories that have nothing to do with assassins or John Wick style stuff. And Monkey Man is based off of its own thing. It's based off of Hindu mythology, so it's not a knockoff of anything. It's a portrayal of this myth, this fable, and I liked it. I always talk a lot about visuals because for me, you can have a really good story, but if I don't want to look at your movie, I don't want to watch your movie, right? And Monkey Man also had really great visuals. All the ones in really had really great visuals. And I love Dev Patel. A lot of times movies in my top, I'm a little biased because I love the actors in it. But if you're a good actor and I want to watch you, that's a good movie because I want to watch this actor because they're a good actor and I like them. So that was part of it. And then the story itself, I really liked. I just talked about how I like concepts like that. It wasn't too over the top actiony. I'm normally not into action. It's kind of a delicate balance for me. And I think Monkey Man hit that right. And I liked how they included bits of the mythology in the story. And it was just very interesting and it was a fun watch. And number 15, Mean Girls, the musical. This one I kind of just had an interesting experience with. I watched it when it previewed. I was one of the first audiences to see it before the trailer even came out. So when I watched it, it was very under wraps. We had no idea what movie we were going to watch. And I didn't even know that they were making a movie version of the Mean Girls musical. I knew about the Mean Girls musical on Broadway, of course. And sitting down to watch this movie was the first time I had heard it was becoming a movie. And then I think a week or two after I saw it in the preview is when the trailer and poster and all that dropped. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice surprise. I love musicals. I'm always going to be biased towards musicals. And I liked it a lot more than Mean Girls the original. I actually don't like Mean Girls 2004 with Lindsay Lohan. This is going to sound stupid, but I don't like movies where the characters are mean. I don't like watching mean characters and bad things happen to people. I don't like watching mean characters. I don't like it when people in movies when characters are like really rude and like get away with it. Just mean girl high school stuff. I'm like not into that kind of movie. So I've never really been into Mean Girls, but the musical aspect and the different portrayal of these characters I actually really enjoyed. And I was able to kind of look past all of the like high school mean girl stuff. And I was able to much better enjoy the concept of this film in this way that it was delivered to me through the musical, and really good dance sequences, really interesting visuals. I just really enjoyed watching it. And I think because I like it more than the original, it deserves to be pretty high up here. At 14, I have Late Night with the Devil. Late Night with the Devil, I just really loved the concept and originality and like the execution, like having a horror movie be like lost tape style, but the lost tape is of a talk show, because we've all seen like lost tape style films, found footage. But one, I haven't really seen a lot of like talk show style movies in general, like that takes place on a talk show or is about a talk show host, guest, whatever. The first one I can think of is Joker, because he's trying to get on the talk show and he does at the end, but the movie's not about that, right? And so this movie being essentially just like a lost episode concept, I thought was really cool. And how they switched between like the black and gray, like behind the scenes footage to like complete the story was really interesting. It wasn't like scary, but not all horror, I guess, needs to be scary. And I know some people probably disagree with me with it being not being scary. I just kind of have a high tolerance for that. But I did enjoy the visuals. The visuals were really creepy and uncomfortable at times. And I think sometimes it's okay if your horror is just like creepy and weird to look at. It doesn't necessarily have to like scare you, jump scare, boo in the face, right? And that's what I really liked about Late Night with the Devil. I love the like 70s style. It definitely looked like the time period. And David Dastmalchian is slowly becoming an actor I really like. I've liked a lot of the work that I've seen him do, and I definitely will continue to follow his career. So yeah, I really like that movie. Number 13 is Juror number 2, which I don't know if any of you are thinking, but Raven, that's a direct-to-streaming movie. It's not. It released in limited theaters before it came onto HBO Max or whatever. So it's not actually, I don't consider it a direct-to-streaming Max original movie, even if they produced it, whatever, bought it. I saw it in theaters. So not saying that like even if it was direct-to-streaming, it couldn't be in the top 10. I'm just dunking so hard on direct-to-streaming movies that came out in 2024, but I don't consider this that because I watched it in a theater. Juror number 2, I have a whole other video dedicated strictly to that one, so I won't get too much into it. But just, I felt weird after watching it in a good way. I felt very uncomfortable. I was nervous for the character the whole time. I felt like I was in trouble when I was watching this movie. And at the end of it, I was kind of in like such an anxious state of mind that says something. It was a very affecting movie for me. So, and I see that as a positive. I want a movie to just affect my being. I want to feel something, and Juror number 2 really made me feel something. At number 12, Wicked. Now, I've already talked about how I love musicals. I almost wasn't even going to see Wicked though, because I'm a really big Ariana Grande hater. Don't come for me about that. That's my business. I just don't like her. I just don't. So I didn't really want to watch a whole movie where she's on screen the whole time. But I had a friend who watched it who is actually a really big Ariana fan. And my friend told me, like, just because you don't like her, like, you're still going to like the movie. And I was like, well, you're biased. You can't say that. And they were like, no, trust me. So I watched it and they were right because I had never seen Wicked, the show, before. I'm familiar with the concept, but I don't know too much about the characters or anything like that. So this was my first, like, exposure to Wicked as a story. And I really enjoyed the story a lot. I really enjoyed the songs. The visuals were good. Everyone talks about how like the lighting and colorization could have been better. And yeah, it could have been, but I didn't think it was bad. And I didn't really feel the runtime all that much. It was a really long movie. I do wish that they could have condensed Wicked into one movie. Wicked, the show, the Broadway show, is like 2 hours, maybe 2.5. I don't know. But around there, because that's like standard show time. So they could have put the whole story of Wicked into one movie, but you know, I get wanting to like add stuff and whatever. I just hate when movies do that. Like they can't, it's a whole complete story split into parts So we're left kind of like on a cliffhanger with characters, and I really want to know like what happens to them, and I have to wait a year. So I'm a little annoyed by that, but regardless of all that, Wicked was still a good movie, and I can put all the rest aside. At number 11, I have Maxxxine. Maxxxine is the third in like the X trilogy movies starring Mia Goth, the first one being X, and then Pearl, and then now Maxxxine. I feel like I'm a little bit on an opposite opinion as some other people, at least the people talking about these movies on Twitter that I've seen, where a lot of people didn't really like Maxxxine very much. It's like their least favorite of the trilogy. I'm not sure how other people feel about X. I loved X. X, I think, was in my top 5, at the very least my top 10 of movies that came out that year. I actually didn't like Pearl that much. I didn't think it was nearly as good as X, and I just wasn't super entertained by it. I thought it was a little bit boring, honestly. I wasn't into the character of Pearl, but people fucking loved that movie. They saw something I didn't, which is totally fine. Maxxxine brought it back for me. I really liked Maxxxine. Mia Goth is back to being the character that she was in X a few years later. So this is kind of like a direct sequel to X, and Pearl is a prequel. So they're kind of out of order in that way, which is cool, which is fine. But I just really like Mia Goth as the character of Maxxxine. I like the old Hollywood vibe. You might argue that it's a little convoluted with who the villain is of the movie and stuff like that, but also it's kind of not, because it was set up. The villain's her father, if you haven't seen the movie, who like targets her and is like killing all these people around her. But that was kind of set up in X at the end of it. So I think it made sense. It would have made less sense if the character of her father wasn't a part of it at all. So I liked it. I had a good time watching it. Now on to the top 10 movies of 2024. At number 10, I have The First Omen.
You don't have to be afraid. God has great plans for you. This child is his way.
I'm a fan of the Omen movies. I like the original, of course. The ones after that like weren't as good, but I still watch them, and it's like, it's fun, it's campy, it's whatever. Son of the Devil, I like it. It's fun. And The First Omen being like the story of how Damien came to be through the story of this nun, I really enjoyed. The acting was good. The different like references to other kind of like stories that like fit in there, like Easter egg wise, I liked it a lot. I like the references. Visuals, of course, I enjoyed. It wasn't as like over the top as like some visuals in some of the other movies I saw, but I thought it was just enough. It was appropriately eerie and creepy, and the main actress did a wonderful job. I have another video where I talk about The First Omen and Immaculate, and I liked both those movies. Immaculate is in my top 30, so I liked both of them quite a lot. At number 9, Love Lies Bleeding.
So where did you appear from? Oklahoma. I've never been anywhere but here.
This one, I'll say I'm a little bit biased just because I love Kristen Stewart, but also regardless of Kristen Stewart, this is a good movie. Interesting concept. It seemed very original to me. Not every part of it, but you can't have like a 100% like original idea. It's just all different ideas combining to make something new. And that's how I felt about Love Lies Bleeding. I'm definitely partial to queer love stories. I like all different kinds of love stories, but I don't see queer love stories quite as much as I see other kinds of love stories. So I just really appreciate them when they come out, and I like the portrayal of this one. Like I could really like feel the tension between the characters, the romance between them, and Kristen Stewart's just an amazing actress. Everyone in this movie did a good job, but Kristen Stewart is just, I just believe her. I just never have any problem believing her when she's on screen, and that's like a big thing, you know, knowing that these are actors, like they have to be believable, and that's something Kristen Stewart's really good at, I think. I like the little elements of body horror too. Like this wasn't just like a straight drama or thriller. There's like little fantastical horror-y elements in there as well, which I thought was really cool. I love when movies kind of like combine genres and put different visuals and stuff in there that you wouldn't think to be in there, and it just kind of adds something really unique to the story. So Love Lies Bleeding I really enjoyed. At number 8, I have Deadpool and Wolverine.
I'm about to lose everything that I've ever cared about.
Not my fucking problem.
Is that what you said when your world went to shit?
Come again.
This Wolverine let down his entire world.
This movie moved up a lot in retrospect. I actually watched this movie again just about a week ago in preparation for this video. I rewatched a couple movies that were in the top of my list just to make sure they still deserve to be there, and Deadpool and Wolverine actually moved up quite a bit. When I watched it in theaters, I thought, this is okay. I'll give you some context for it though. Watching Deadpool and Wolverine, I had seen all the Deadpool movies. I hadn't seen any of the X-Men. I had seen like 1.5 X-Men films. So before watching Deadpool and Wolverine, because I knew they were going to make references and stuff like that, I wanted to watch all them. So I watched all of the X-Men movies. I even filmed a video where I talked about all of the X-Men movies and included my review of Deadpool and Wolverine. But I had a lot of technical problems with that video and I did not want to reshoot it. So I just kind of left it in the void and it will never see the light of day. But when I watched Deadpool and Wolverine, I was at the height of my excitement over X-Men because I discovered I really like a lot of those movies and I really like Hugh Jackman and the character of Wolverine. So watching Deadpool and Wolverine, loved it as a Wolverine story. Didn't like it so much as a Deadpool movie because it's missing a lot of like the charm of the Deadpool movie with like its side characters. They kind of just put all those other side characters to the wayside and more focus on new characters, bigger characters that just aren't really quite the same, but I still liked it. I still really enjoyed it. I thought it was funny. I loved the chemistry between Deadpool and Wolverine. The kind of anti-chemistry that they had was really entertaining, and it's just a fun movie, and it's a movie that like I could see myself watching a bunch of times and just still being entertained by, which is a really big thing for me. If I can watch a movie multiple times and still like it and be entertained by it every single time I watch it, like that's huge. Rewatchability is a really big contender for me in deciding if a movie is good or not. And Deadpool and Wolverine, I could definitely watch a bunch of times. I might watch it again after filming this video, to be honest with you. At number 7, I have Heretic.
Are you interested in learning more about the Church of Jesus Christ?
Come on in.
We can't come inside unless another woman is present.
My wife is home. Does that count?
Great.
You like pie?
Yeah.
My wife has pie in the oven.
I could tell that you are a very spiritually curious person.
I think it is good to be religious, to find your faith in a doctrine you actually believe.
Well, our work here is done.
Now, I will go and check on the pie.
So sleep, silent angel.
Heretic, I also have a video on. I think I combined Heretic with Juror number 2. So if you're curious about my opinion on those movies, check out that video. Heretic is another one where I just really enjoyed the concept. I haven't seen a horror movie about like Mormonism and in terms of like testing your faith. Like there's been like test your faith horror movies out there before, but the portrayal of this and Hugh Grant, just an amazing actor. I've never seen him as like a villain before, not like this. And the fact that he could still be Hugh Grant and have his Hugh Grant charm while being like a really scary guy was incredible. All the acting was great. I love the visuals in this one as well. The fact that it's just like a trapped in a basement type of movie, like I love that. I love trapped movies. Saw, like I love the Saw films because you're trapped and you got to figure a way out and you have to use your cleverness to get out. You have to use your wit. Cube, movies like that, similar thing. And this was just like that. This is my type of film. It's just a battle of wits at the end of the day. It's a really large, important puzzle that you need to solve to survive, and that's what Heretic is, and that's the kind of movie that I just have always enjoyed. And it just really fits that category for me. It was really, really entertaining and interesting. And I had the worst movie theater experience of my life watching it. Not of my life, but a really bad one. And I was able to overlook that because of how much I enjoyed the movie, which is saying a lot for me. If I have a bad experience watching a movie, it usually taints the movie for me. That was not the case with Heretic. At number 6, I have I Saw the TV Glow.
I know this might sound crazy. I don't want to alarm you. Do you remember a TV show we used to watch together? It was called The Pig Go Pig? Yeah. Do you watch?
I have another video dedicated just to this movie. Usually I combine movies. I have a whole video just about I Saw the TV Glow. And in that movie, I'm pretty kind of undecided on how I feel about it. I have pros and cons. I have this is why I like it, this is why I didn't like it. And at the end of it, I was kind of like, it was fine. It was okay. I gave it like 3 stars, I think. But this is one of the movies, because I was so wishy-washy on it, I definitely had to rewatch in order to cement its place on my list. And in rewatching it, I realized that I actually really do enjoy the film, and it's actually a really good film. So it just, I needed a second watch to really get it. And not that I didn't understand the movie, but there was definitely some things that I missed the first time around. And things that made a lot more sense watching it again. And I just enjoyed it a lot more upon a second viewing, which also adds to its rewatchability for me. I'm sure if I watched it a third time, there's even more stuff that I might get from it. And that's exciting and that's awesome. That's a really big credit towards a movie. If like there's a movie that just is a different experience every time you watch it, like that's huge, because then it's a new movie every time and you get so much enjoyment out of just one film. And that's how I feel about I Saw the TV Glow, and that's why it is number 6 on my list. At number 5, I have Challengers.
Tashi Duncan, she's gonna turn a whole family into millionaires. She'll have a fashion line, a foundation.
You were incredible today.
Thank you.
I mean, it wasn't even like tennis. It was an entirely different game.
Hey, come hang out with us later.
Want me to come tuck you in?
No, we can just keep talking.
I'm sure nobody's surprised that Challengers is so high up on the list. If you've seen Challengers, I mean, you know that it's great. Visually fantastic, great acting, fun story. I've never seen like this kind of like tennis romance kind of movie. Like there's sports movies, but this like really wasn't a sports movie. It wasn't about the sport. It was about the characters. It was a character study hidden in a sports drama, and that was amazing. And Luca Guadagnino, like, I'm not gonna say he never misses, because he does. Queer, I haven't mentioned it so far on the list, and that's because it's in, I think, like my top 40 films, but it was just kind of, so it's kind of like mid-tier for me. Queer was just okay. Bones and All, I have a video on that too, which more describes my feelings about that movie, but at the end of the day, I don't like that movie. Like, I think it's a good movie, I just don't like it. So it kind of depends when it comes to Luca Guadagnino for me. Like, I don't like the Suspiria remake either. I think he's better at original concepts than he is at like adapting something. Challengers is his movie. He co-wrote it and directed it. I think he's a really creative filmmaker, and when he's able to have more freedom, I think the movies are better. And also just wonderful cast. The 3 main actors in this, just the way they interact with each other and how their different relationships change over the course of the film. The way it was told sort of non-linearly, and we're kind of skipping throughout time to kind of put together and lead up to the one moment that we're really at the core of the movie, and just seeing how we got there was a really cool way to tell a story. I love how the story was told, and I was just interested in it the whole time. It felt like I was unlocking a puzzle as I was watching it, like my brain was really working, and this movie, no pun intended, challenged my mind in that way. At number 4, we have Nosferatu, my character's sake for the day.
I've never shared my secret with any soul.
You've had these spells since childhood. Tell me what you can from the beginning.
It is like a dream. It was our wedding. When we turned around, everyone was dead. The stench of their bodies was horrible. Standing before me was death. But I'd never been so happy.
Nosferatu, I really wanted to watch again before putting this video out. I mean, it's already number 4. If anything, it would have gone up. I mean, so regardless, it would have been pretty high, but this is a movie that is up so high right now because I want to watch it again so bad, because looking at it was just such a great film to physically watch on the screen. It's so visually stunning. That's something that Robert Eggers is really, really good at. And Robert Eggers also, it's not like he never misses. It's not just like, oh yeah, obviously it's Robert Eggers, it's a good movie. Robert Eggers, if there's one thing he's good at, it's visuals. And I don't like all Robert Eggers movies. I famously hate The Witch, and I've watched it a couple times. I've given it a couple different chances, and I hate it. And I know part of his thing too is like being period accurate. So all the characters in that movie talk like how they should talk. And so you can't understand a single fucking word anyone is saying. And I know that that's the point, but I hate that that's the point because I don't like not understanding the characters. But it's a nice film to look at. Aesthetically, that film's fine. That's the best part about it to me. And then there's also like there's heavy meaning in all his movies, even if I don't like it. Like The Witch has a lot of heavy meaning in it for Anya Taylor-Joy's character. And The Northman's pretty good. I really like The Lighthouse. The Lighthouse is very, very rich with meaning as well and visual. And Nosferatu kind of goes back into that Robert Eggers thing of like there's so much meaning to it and it's visually fantastic, but this one has the added bonus of having really good actors in it, good dialogue that I can understand. It really all comes together performance-wise, visually, sound design, everything. I saw this movie on film, on 70mm film at the New Beverly Cinema here in LA. And so like the experience of watching it at that theater on film, it's like a little bit like grainier, kind of classic looking, which I think definitely adds something artistically to a lot of movies. So I loved that I got to see it on film. Story-wise, Nosferatu is great. I love Bill Skarsgård. I love Nicholas Hoult, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, and Willem Dafoe. Just star-studded. Lily Rose Depp, I hadn't really seen in a movie before. All I know is her from like Yoga Hosers and from like The Idol, which are, those things are not good. But she killed it. Her like physicality in this movie was great. Costumes, everything, just everything about Nosferatu just came together in such a beautiful way, and it was really enjoyable. And I think it could go higher if I watched it again. But as of right now, it's pretty well cemented as top 4. That's already pretty high, so it doesn't necessarily need to go any higher. Really, honestly, all the movies I have in the top 5, you could interchange any of them. They all belong in the top 5, and it was really hard for me to put which was number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Take that as you will. At number 3, I have Lisa Frankenstein.
Are you hot for anyone? Lisa! Does he have more of a basketball bod or a football bod?
He doesn't play sports. I tend to his grave. I talk to him. I wish I was with you.
That's really weird, Lisa.
Lisa Frankenstein came out pretty early in 2024, so it's been towards the top of my list for a while. And anytime I add a new movie to my list after I see it, I think, is it better than this one? Is it better than this one? Is it better than this one? Like, did I like it more than this one? And so that's kind of hard to do for every movie that you watch, because some movies I liked because of this reason, some movie I liked because of this reason, and it's hard to compare the two. Lisa Frankenstein is number 3 on the list because watching it in theaters, I just felt so happy and I had such a good time watching it. I just fell in love with these characters. I fell in love, with their story. I really liked how this movie looked. Colorization, like color palette, colorization wise, lighting wise, there's a lot of like cool neon and stuff like that. The costumes were great. The setting, the time period, it takes place in 1989, so you got that like late 80s, early 90s feel to it, and I think that really added a lot to this film. Just lonely teenage outcast girl. I think that's always like a fun character to follow, honestly, and then adding this like extra layer of fun, quirky, spooky on top of it with having her reanimated dead corpse, like, and then fall in love with it. Like, it's Bride of Frankenstein in a new, modern, really fun, awesome way. Like, I just had a really good time, and I'm not ashamed to say that I was really attracted to Cole Sprouse as a corpse. I just was, and that was purposeful. I was supposed to be us. This was for the creepy girls. This was for the freaky girls, and I'm one of them. This movie was for me, and I appreciate that, and that's why it is my 3rd favorite movie of 2024. At number 2, I have The Substance.
Have you ever dreamt of a better version of yourself? Younger, more beautiful, more perfect. One single injection unlocks your DNA and will release another version of yourself. This is The Substance.
Also have a video on that. Check that out for more fleshed out thoughts. But The Substance was just, I don't even know what words I can say to describe what The Substance is. It was just something that I have never seen before. It's a concept that I think is really important to explore about self-worth and aging and just being a woman, just inherent problems that come with that, and how our worth is measured through like what we look like to others, which is such a depressing concept sometimes, and you can be on top and then very quickly go to the bottom just because you committed the sin of aging and changing. Like, there's so much there. There's so much more than just that there as well. But that being like a core concept, I think is always something important. And the way that that concept was portrayed was so unique. I haven't seen it like this before, and I probably never will again. And that's incredible. The body horror. Oh my God, the body horror. I feel like body horror is so misused in a lot of movies these days, like shock value. A lot of movies really go for shock value, but they do it in such like a random, unartistic way. Whereas The Substance, it was just drenched in meaning when it came to the body horror, as well as many other concepts in the film, but the body horror itself. I've never seen body horror used this way, in a way that worked so incredibly well. The same with the nudity in it. Just being naked and vulnerable has so much meaning to it inherently as well in all sorts of films, and the way that that was used in The Substance was incredible as well. The performances, I mean, I don't even have to say, performances and everything else was great on top of it. The way the film was shot, the cuts, the framing, it all came together. It all came together really, really well. And this might as well be the best movie of the year. Like, this is definitely like one of the best movies of 2024, and just one of the best movies to come out in the last couple of years. Like, if I had a ranked list of all the best movies that have come out in the past like 5 years to a decade even, like, this would definitely like be up there. So now we've made it to my favorite movie that I considered the best of 2024, which, let me say before I say what it is, I rewatched this movie because it's been my number one since it came out, and it hasn't changed. I definitely rewatched it before finalizing this list, and in rewatching it, I don't know if it deserves the number one spot, but it definitely does deserve a top 5. And like I said, all the movies in my top 5 could really be at any space, and the decision to make a movie number 1 is such a big decision for me that it was really hard to make. I thought maybe The Substance is number 1, maybe Nosferatu, maybe Challengers, Lisa Frankenstein feels good at 3, but everything else I'm kind of like, ooh, I don't know. Even I Saw the TV Glow might belong there, I don't know. But this movie, I just couldn't bring myself to move it, just because at the time that I watched it, I felt so strongly about how much I loved it, and just never even thought about touching it until I watched it again. I thought, let me just keep it there. I'll just keep it there, because it does definitely deserve top 5 in my heart. So the movie that I put as my number 1 movie of 2024 is Drive Away Dolls.
Hello, girls. It's the last body shot competition, so we are gonna salt you up.
I've had it with love. I don't believe it's relevant to the 21st century lesbian.
You're not wearing that.
I just came from work.
I came from Toledo. I don't dress like it.
I'm not here to peddle my wares.
I'm leaving town.
I am too. That was my plan. Where are you going?
Tallahassee, Florida. I've been unhappy.
That's why we take this trip together, honey babe. We get our act together.
Drive Away Dolls. I was very fresh after watching that movie when I filmed that review. So if you want kind of like the state of mind I was in and why I love Drive Away Dolls so much when I first watched it, like you can definitely watch that video. But in retrospect, I liked it because it was just a really, really fun experience to watch. Going to the theaters and seeing something like, I love comedies. If I had a number one genre, it wouldn't be horror, it would be comedy, with horror as a close second. I love a comedy. I love to laugh. Movies are a form of escapism for me. I watch movies to feel better. Anytime I'm sad or angry or upset or it's the end of my week and I'm just trying to forget about work or anything like that, like I have a handful of movies that I always like go back to feel better, and they're all like fun, quirky comedies. Comedy movies have gotten me through breakups, deaths, COVID, the fires going on in Los Angeles right now. I can watch a movie and I can forget about it for an hour or two. So I'm just very, very partial to comedies in that way, because those are the types of movies that have always been there for me and have always made me feel better. And when I watched Drive Away Dolls, I just had this fun, euphoric feeling watching it in theaters. I felt so happy to watch it. There's a lot of uniqueness to it. It is also a queer love story, which I was just saying with Love Lies Bleeding. I really appreciate those. I thought the characters were like contrasted very well, but at the same time had a really interesting chemistry and relationship to them. Margaret Qualley holds the top 2 spaces of 2024 for me. Her character, the accent, the like southern accent that she has, she's just so funny in this film. She's just such an endearing character that I wanted to keep watching. She's like a slut, but she doesn't get judged for it, which is also really cool. And there's a lot to her. She's not just a funny character. She has like her own like intelligence and wit about her that heavily contrasts with the main character, who's like traditionally very intelligent, quiet woman. And Margaret Qualley is a little more freewheeling and out of her shell. And the main like plot itself is honestly like so ridiculous and over the top that I did not see it coming. It was a really nice surprise. If you haven't seen it or haven't seen my review, the core plot of these girls who are trying to go to Florida, so they get a drive-away car, then drive it to Florida, and there's like a case in the car, and we don't know what's in the case until like later in the movie, and when they open it, it's a bunch of plaster casts of penises of like important like political men, one of them being this like senator who really wants to get that case back because one of the penises is his. And I had no idea what was going to be in that case until they opened it. And then the fact that it was like plaster cast dicks I just thought it was so funny. And then all the events that come after that, like it's just so ridiculous. And I just enjoyed it so much. And I definitely think it deserves to be high up on this list. It deserves to be recognized as one of the top 5 movies of 2024. It did not do so well when it came out, but to me, it was incredible and I loved it a lot. And watching it again didn't have that same sense of magic, honestly, and it's only because like the surprises were no longer there. So rewatchability wise, I would watch it again and I could probably still get enjoyment out of it watching it again. But some movies, if there are surprises, obviously that does hurt rewatchability. That's not my main criteria, of course. I just really enjoyed myself watching it, and I think that's really important because if you don't enjoy a movie, what's the point, you know? So that's why Drive Away Dolls is the highest on my 2024 list. Okay, so that's all the best and worst movies I watched in 2024. Again, if you want the whole comprehensive list of all 73 new releases I watched, check out my Letterboxd. I'm really excited to start my 2025 list. I haven't watched any new releases yet. It's the middle of January as I'm filming this. I'm really excited to see what 2025 brings in terms of films. I'm really optimistic. 2024 wasn't the best when it came to movies, but there was definitely a lot of good ones in there, and I hope that we can get even more in 2025. I hope I can see even more new releases, and I'm excited for it. So that was my 2024 list. Let me know what you think about that. If you disagree with any of my rankings, I would love to know why. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you next time. Bye!
Thanks for watching, honeybees. Make sure to like and subscribe. Bye! Meow!